Pros and cons of living in Boise, Idaho. If you're thinking about moving to Boise, Idaho anytime this year, this video is for you. By the end of this video, you're gonna understand if Boise, Idaho is gonna be a place that you could live so that you could ultimately plan your trip here, come visit with the team, and start narrowing down exactly where you want to live for your move this upcoming year. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. My name is Craig Flood. I am a real estate agent here in Idaho. And if you're thinking about moving to Idaho, what you need to do is subscribe to the channel so that when I post new content each week, you get updated to help you on your journey of discovering whether or not Idaho or Boise, Idaho is going to be a good fit for you. And don't forget to hit the bell so that you get notified each time I post a video. So if you are somebody considering Boise, Idaho, and you want to know what the pros and cons are, then stick around because this video is for you. We're going to talk about the city, the seasons, the outdoors, and the time zone. And we're going to talk about its growth, its isolation, its hot summers, and the snow. And be sure to stick around till the end if you want to see what I mean when I say snow, because we just got one of the best snows of the year for 2024. Granted, I know it just started, but you're going to get to see what it would be like if you were to live here. Let's jump into the pros of living in Boise, Idaho. Boise, Idaho is a small city. The whole area, Boise and all the suburbs around it, ultimately the Treasure Valley, you're looking at like a total population of 800,000. Now, if we compare that to some other larger cities, just cities on their own, you'll see that, again, Boise and even the surrounding cities, it's just not that large of an area. And I just pulled some up here. So like Los Angeles, 3.9 million, Phoenix, Arizona, 1.6 million. And those are just those cities, not the larger metropolitan area. San Diego, 1.4 million, San Jose, 1 million, San Francisco, 800,000. So you're talking about everything in this Treasure Valley area being put into the little small pocket of San Francisco. Denver, Colorado, the city itself, 740,000. Seattle, 740,000. So you can kind of see that, again, this area, it's not one of the biggest cities on the West Coast. It is small. But again, this is a pro. So I'm saying it's small and that it's a pro, and this is why you might like that. So for example, say you wanted to drive all the way across the valley, all the way from, say, Caldwell on the far west side and southeast Boise on the far east side. Right now, if you were to make that drive, you're looking at 35 to 40 minutes on Interstate 84. So the benefit of it being small is that it's just not that large. You can easily get around. Now, again, when talking about a small city, we are going to miss out on some things. My wife and I were talking about it this morning. Yes, you're going to miss out on like IKEA. To IKEA! We became accustomed to that when we lived in Portland, Oregon. It was really nice to go to IKEA to grab something for the kids' room, or go get a nice new lamp, or drop the kids off and kind of take a break and go eat the cheap food in the cafeteria. Yum. We don't have that here. You got to drive to Portland for that. You got to drive to Salt Lake City or Seattle, but you're not going to get that here in the Treasure Valley. Shucks. But what you are going to get is the small town feel. And now I will even say this as a caveat. I have talked to some of you who have thought about moving to Boise, Idaho, and even you would say, it's too big, it's too bustling, it's just not what I want. And you tend to maybe keep heading east towards Twin Falls, Pocatello, Idaho Falls. If you're curious about any of those places, I've done some videos on them. You can check that out in the description down below. But I just put that in as a caveat because even for some of you, Boise just feels too big and the whole area surrounding it. It's just too big. Again, let's just say that you end up moving here and you choose Boise or one of the surrounding cities. Often I talk with people and they're attracted to Boise, but they actually end up moving into one of the suburbs like Meridian or Eagle or Star. But let's just say you did move to Boise proper. When you live here, for you to get to certain things, whether that's schooling options, entertainment, grocery stores like Trader Joe's or Winco or Costco, it just doesn't take that long. The traffic is not unbearable. A lot of times you can just be on city streets and you don't have to get on an interstate. The next pro for Boise, Idaho is going to be those 4 seasons. The 4 seasons are great, and I would imagine you probably love it or hate it, but let me give you my reason why I think you may love it. Even though at the end of the video, one of my cons is going to be snow, but we'll get to that. Welcome to Boise's first real good snow. So here we go. What do you say? That's about 3 inches? 3 inches of snow? This is kind of what a snow day looks like here in Boise. So here we have all 4 seasons. We don't have an endless summer. You have to have multiple outfits when you come here. You have your summer clothes, you have your winter clothes, and then you have your in-between clothes. I was talking to a family who just recently moved here from the East Coast where it was like the same kind of weather all the time. And they're like, yep, we wore shorts, we wore polos. That was all that we wore. And then they moved here and now they're like having to shop and get the right kind of clothes and figuring out how to layer things so that they can handle the 4 seasons. But with that being said, in addition to summer, right, you're getting spring, fall, and winter. And winter is really unique here in Boise, Idaho, especially compared to the rest of Idaho. First, winter doesn't last forever. Second, when it snows here, that also doesn't last forever. So it's not like there's just snow piles hanging out around town turning brown all winter long. Ugh. The sun's gonna come along and melt them. We're high desert here in Boise and southern Idaho, and so we do get a lot of sun days in the winter, which is lovely. You will get some castover days where maybe you have an inversion happening, or maybe a storm's rolling in that's bringing all the great snow for Bogus Basin so that if you like skiing, you can go up there and ski, and it's gonna drop a few inches down in the valley. For example, just this morning when I woke up, I'd say we had about 3 to 4 inches. But it's lovely, it's just a nice change of pace. I personally love driving in the snow. But again, it's not gonna last forever. Within a few days or a week, it'll most likely melt and go away. But you can't really say that about a lot of other places in Idaho. One other thing to note, and this is really in comparison to other cities here in southern Idaho, is that Boise is not that windy. If you're considering other places like Twin Falls, Pocatello, Idaho Falls, there's a lot of wind that whips through that area. It's a bit windy! There's some pros that come alongside that, but ultimately, I would say it's a con. And if you're somebody who's considering other cities kind of along this southern section of Idaho, that would be something to consider. And I would add that as a pro to Boise that, hey, it doesn't get super windy here. Next for pros of living in Boise, Idaho is gonna be the outdoors. And first, I wanna highlight the crown jewel. There might be 2 crown jewels, but I'm gonna say the Boise River, which is just cutting straight through the heart of Boise. Straight through the heart of town, all the way up to Lucky Peak, all the way out past Eagle and into Oregon. But the Boise River cuts through the whole Treasure Valley. So here we are on the Boise River. I had just finished up a doctor's appointment. I'm on my way back to the office and I'm gonna fish maybe for like 20 minutes. And there's just so many great spots along the river, either to fish or ride a bike, or you can see here some kids were probably playing and kind of made a hangout area. So the river's just got so much to offer, and we're gonna see if I can pull any fish out today. And when me and my family relocated here, this was a huge bonus. We had looked at other towns, like Bend, Oregon was an option that we looked at. I love that the Deschutes River cut through that city in Oregon. But ultimately, Boise came to the top for a couple of reasons. You're hearing a lot of my reasons in this video, but the river was definitely one of them. This is a great place for you to cool off in the summer, go play with the kids, go rafting, go swimming, go bridge jumping, go kayaking in, go boogie boarding in, go surfing in, and it's ultimately just beautiful. So there's so many ways for you to enjoy the river here in Boise. It's not like everybody just built a bunch of $1 million mansions on the river and you and I don't get access to it. The city did a really good job of making it accessible to us. And then all along the river, there's such great amenities, whether it's parks for you to go play at, restaurants, wineries, all sorts of things that make enjoying that river really easy and super fun in the summertime. Now let's continue that topic of the outdoors. I just got off a call this week with a couple moving over from the Carolinas, and one of the reasons they're coming is because they want to be close to the outdoors. They want to be close to the Boise River. They want to be close to the foothills. They want to be close to hiking. They want to be close to being able to hop in a car and just kind of getting out into the wilderness. I love that too as a dad. I love being able to throw my kids in a car and saying, hey, pretty much pick a direction and we can find something to do. Whether it's rafting a river, whether it's exploring new sections of areas of Idaho that we haven't explored before, and finding hot springs and doing fishing and camping.
This is so fun.
Within short order of driving, even 30 minutes, you can get into some really, really beautiful, beautiful areas. The next pro is going to be the time zone. So Idaho is cut up into 2 different time zones. The northern half of Idaho is Pacific Standard Time. So right now it's 3:30 here in Boise, which means in like Moscow and Coeur d'Alene, it's 2:30 p.m. So think about that in relation to the sun. In the wintertime, if it's getting dark up there at 4:30, it's getting dark here at 5:30. So in the wintertime, we have light a little bit longer than they do. Now, granted, obviously then the sun doesn't rise as early in the morning, but in the wintertime, we get light longer into the day. And in the summertime, same thing, we also get light longer into the day. So maybe up in northern Idaho, it's getting dark at 9, but here it's getting dark at 10, which is really hard to put your kids down when it's getting dark at 10. That's when you're like hanging the blankets up and telling your children, hey, it's not light outside, don't think about it. I remember as a kid, it was always the hardest to go to bed when it was light outside. It felt like pure torture. So that is unique. We are just right up against that time zone. So if you were to jump into Oregon, they'd flip. And so we're just really, really close to it. So there's some interesting pros and cons about being there, but I sure do like having more light in the winter. And I love having those long evenings in the summer. Now, what you came here for, the cons. Let's talk about the cons. The reason I tell you these, I try to think as hard as I can about them because, again, I want to help you guys decide if Boise should be on your list or if it shouldn't be on your list. And ultimately, I want you to say, hey, I'm okay with those cons, or I can deal with those, or best case scenario, you don't even see them as cons. So let's jump into the cons to help you decide if Boise is going to be a good option. I just wanted to pause for a second. If you're considering a move here to Boise, Idaho, and you want to take that next step, whether you're moving tomorrow or at the end of the year, I would love to connect. You can call, text, or email days, nights, or weekends. We help people just like you every day make that relocation to Idaho, and we'd love to be your guide. Boise is growing, and this has a lot of ripple effects. It has a ripple effect on the cost of housing, right? The demand is going up, prices are shooting up, so that's going to be a con of the growth, but it's also changing. I think Boise is going to look a lot different in 10 years because you have a huge influx of people coming in that are just kind of bringing a different culture with them about how they live, the way they vote, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of locals are worried about that, where you have a lot of people coming in from California and they're worried about how are you voting? How are you going to do things here? Please don't change our city. And so you have some people who come here and say, oh, I don't think I want to be along for that ride. Maybe Boise isn't right for me. Maybe I want to choose another city that is more like old Idaho that hasn't changed in 30 years. And so obviously with growth comes a lot of things. There's a lot of new construction, a lot of infrastructure. But I'm definitely going to put this as a con. Hopefully, as you're considering a move, you're wanting to stick it out there for 10 plus years. And ultimately, just know that if you come here, things are changing. Now, a positive of that is that if you buy here and things continue to rise, it's going to do really good for you in real estate, which will set you up well for your next move, whether it's a purchase here, or whether it's a purchase to another city in Idaho or another state. It's always good to buy in a place that, people desire and want to live. All right, next up on the cons is going to be isolation. Boise is isolated. Now, earlier when I talked about the pro of saying, hey, it's kind of a small town and it doesn't take that long to drive from one side to the other. Now let's kind of talk about that. It is a small town, but once you get out of that, there's like nothing. Yes, you have some smaller towns. You have Mountain Home, you have Twin Falls, Pocatello, but really your major areas outside of that are like the Spokane area way up north next to Coeur d'Alene. You have Salt Lake City, and then you have Portland, Seattle. Those are like some major areas. So once you make your way out of the Treasure Valley, that's kind of it. You're kind of isolated. It can feel isolating. Again, you might feel cut off from some amenities. This is something me and my family considered when we moved here. One thing that made it okay is the fact that Boise has a really good airport. So that'd be the one caveat to this, because if you move here and say you're moving from California, your family's not coming with you. If you pick some other cities in Idaho, depending on where you go, it may or may not have a good airport, which might make it more difficult for people to come visit you. So for example, this holiday, my family came in from Seattle. It was about an hour flight for them to get to Seattle to Boise. And then when they left, it was such a nice experience for them. Their flight left at 7 p.m. I dropped them off at the airport at 6. They had about an hour, and it was very lovely. They walked straight through security. It was very simple. My mom called me when she got back, and she said, hey, that was really great. which is nice for me because I don't want travel to be a headache for people. I want to make it easy for them to come visit or for us to leave and go visit people. But a con for you, and again, you have to chew on this, is that you could feel isolated if you move here, and that might be a reason that you choose something else. So make sure you consider that. Next on the con list is going to be hot summers. 2 years ago, roughly for about a month, we hit over 100 degrees. And that was hot. Like, that was hot for me. It was the kind of weather where you're like, I'm not going to go out midday. I'm going to do some things in the morning and I'm going to do some things in the evening. But midday, unless I'm going to go surf the river and put some sunscreen on, I might just sit this one out. Boise is not the most temperate city to choose, right? This upcoming week, we're in January right now. You can see we're coming into some colder weather. We got 4 degrees, 5 degrees, 2 degrees, 1 degree. And so you do see we fluctuate all the way from, let's say, 0 to 100, right? That's a big spread. And so I know I said hot summers, but you can have hot summers and you can also have cold winters. So you just need to be ready for that spread. And it doesn't stay 0 forever and it doesn't stay 100 forever. In fact, that was a really hot summer where we were over 100. I mean, it was hot for everybody in the Pacific Northwest, Northern Idaho, Seattle, all these places, which isn't necessarily the norm, but it can happen. And so just know that's on the table if you decide to move here. You take the good, you take the bad, you take the ugly. It's all yours when you move here. So again, hopefully you're getting a taste for what that's going to be if you choose Boise. Another con of living in Boise, Idaho is that you have to shovel snow. This means when it snows outside, you got to get up, you got to figure it out. Technically, you got to get those sidewalks cleared off by 9 a.m. And you're either going to get a shovel or a snowblower. I'd encourage you to get a shovel unless you really want a snowblower. It doesn't snow like this all the time, but when it does, you got to go get it taken care of. Now, maybe you don't mind shoveling snow, but I'm definitely going to put this in the con category. Granted, Boise doesn't get a ton of snow like other places in Idaho, but we do get it, and today is definitely one of those days. But again, I'd imagine that this snow is going to be gone in a week anyway, so I honestly don't mind. It's a good way to wake up in the morning. Some of you I know like to wake up, you like to expose yourself to the sun and get that vitamin D. This is a good way to get that vitamin D. Get out there, shovel the snow, break a sweat, say hi to your neighbors, shovel the old lady's driveway next to you, and make a nice community where you live. If you borrowed somebody's sugar, then you should go shovel their driveway one morning before they wake up.
So I'm heading out to meet my wife for dinner, but I just wanted to show you what the conditions are like. The snow's been hanging around for a little while. So this is what things look like, It's nice to have some boots. You gotta watch out for ice. You don't wanna slip. Also, this is Bounds Crossing here in Boise. Really great. We've got a tavern right there, kids' candy store that they love going to, and I'm going to the Boise Fry Company tonight.
I'd love to know what you guys thought about that. Leave a comment down below. What was your favorite pro? What was your favorite con? And if you're planning to make a move out here this year, be sure to give me and my team a call. We would love to assist you in that process. You can call, text, or email, days, nights, or weekends. We can set up a time to chat, figure out what you need, and help you plan a smooth transition from where you are to Idaho. I'll see you guys in the next video.